Everybody, we've got a fairly healthy list of questions for Coach. So if you could just please make sure you limit yourself to one, that'd be great. We'll start with Ryan Aber and then go to Jason Kersey. Ryan?
Yeah, Lincoln, we talked to you early in the spring about Kennedy Brooks and bouncing back from missing last year. Just wanted to get an update on how he's doing, how he's looked, and some of the areas that you've seen progress from him and areas where you need to see progress going forward.
I think he's doing well. You know, like we said earlier, I think it took a little time for him to get his feet back underneath him, you know, get back to be used to being on the field with the guys. But I mean, you still see the natural feel and for setting up blocks and understanding schemes. That's made him a good player here early in his career. I think he's pushing himself, and we're pushing him to become a more consistent practice player. Continuing to get more explosive in the weight room and with his on-the-field practice habits. And then probably the biggest thing we're pushing out of him right now is leadership. And we need that from him. He's a guy that's been in a lot of battles. He's been in a lot of big wins, a lot of big moments. And for our running back room, our offense, our entire team, we need to feel his presence, and that's something. He's at times a little bit of a naturally quiet guy, but you get there to the end of your career, you got to rise up and be a leader and push yourself to be more vocal. And he did a really good job of that today, and we're definitely going to need that from him and others going forward.
Appreciate it, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jason Kersey and then Eric Bailey.
Yeah, Lincoln, I wanted to ask you about we're coming up on this new world of college athletics with name, image, likeness. And I wanted to ask you how you're preparing your guys for that, specifically maybe Spencer and Caleb, because I'm sure they're going to be among the guys getting maybe the most opportunities out of that. How are those conversations going?
I would say we've done a lot of preparing within the athletic department. I'll give Joe Castiglione and his staff a lot of credit. They've really kind of kept all of us in the department on the forefront. We've been pretty proactive about our plans, which there is a lot of planning around that because it'll put athletic departments, coaches, administrators, everybody in a tough position just because these are the people you're in charge of, but by rule you're going to have no say or no involvement in this. But ultimately, we all know we're still all going to be responsible for it. And so it's going to be, it'll be interesting as we go forward. I mean, we're going to have to prepare, but also we're going to have to adjust, because there's a lot of different ways that this legislation can go. And so, for us, our team is aware that we're making the necessary preparations, and I think the way we handle it with any of our players is, just like we do, on the field recognition, awards, anything individual is, we want guys to have individual goals. Of course, we want them to have success personally, but nothing ever here at this program will come in front of the team and the team's success. And ultimately, when the team has success, it's going to create more opportunities for the individuals. So that's we'll definitely be on the forefront, but that's going to be our place with it, and that part's not going to change.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Eric Bailey and then Joe Bettner.
Hey, Lincoln, I wanted to ask you, what has Caleb Williams' growth been like this spring? And just for you as a coach, what's it been like not having a transfer in the quarterback's room these past 2 seasons compared to what it was like your first 3? Is there any difference at all?
Is that the second part of that, Eric, one more time?
Any difference at all of not having a transfer quarterback in your quarterback's room these past 2 seasons versus the first 3 when you had transfers in your room?
I got a transfer. I got Micah Bowens in there right now.
Okay. No, yeah, you're right. Okay, you're right. I forgot.
I certainly get the question. But Caleb's doing well, getting a lot of reps, learning a lot, throwing him in a lot of different situations. I think he's done a good job with as he makes. He does a pretty good job making plays. Outside the pocket. He's athletic. He throws well on the move. Has some creativity to his game. He's still got to get more consistent on just the kind of the more routine plays, which is normal for this time, in the offense, was he's just learning and kind of getting started. But he's working hard to learn it while balancing a pretty pretty challenging class load right now. So he's got a lot on his plate, but he's doing well. He's progressing nicely, has a lot of ability. Certainly he's got a long way to go in his knowledge and understanding and the decisions day in and day out, but certainly see no reason why, he can't be a very good player for us as we go on. The room's good. It's nice having some returners in there and some guys that have been in there. A lot of the guys are fighting like crazy to learn it, which is fun. It's made the room competitive, and everybody's kind of eager to learn. And several of those guys are all kind of learning it for the first time at the same time, which I think has been helpful because they're able to bounce stuff off of each other and questions. And then it's good for them having a older guy in the room in Spencer that obviously is a little bit more, more down the line with his knowledge of it.
Lincoln, thanks. Have a good week.
You too.
Joe Bettner and then Kerry Murdoch.
Hey, Lincoln, you guys are 3 years into having redshirt freshmen being able to play 4 games in a season. And I'm curious, as you kind of get into this spring, kind of seeing that full cycle go through, have you noticed any difference in maybe quicker player development as far as getting those game reps? Are guys coming along quicker than maybe they used to?
I think it's fair. I think you can point to a handful of guys that we've had over those years that were able to get that game experience, and the game experience is great. But I think also just the mental side of it, like every player out there knowing, hey, whether I happen to redshirt or not, I'm going to have a shot to go play. And just what that does for you mentally. When that opportunity's out there, it just feels different to guys. And so I think the rule has been a good rule. I mean, I think it served the 2 purposes, which, one, as you mentioned, was developing players, and 2 was let's don't take away seasons from guys that have extremely minimal playing time. So I think, as you look back on it, it's been one of the rules that I would say has been very positive.
Okay, let's go to Kerry Murdoch and then John Hoover.
Hey, Lincoln. I'm curious about this spring, not having it last year, having, so many practices that were interrupted because of contact tracing. Has it made you do more this spring that maybe you wouldn't have done? You put an emphasis on maybe, I don't know, things like more physicality or things like that in practice, or is you just let it be normal like it always has and kind of enjoy that?
Yeah, probably closer to normal. Spring a lot of times to me is, kind of predetermined, what you can do on your roster, both the experience level of your roster, where you're at with your different systems, and then just how many players you have available at every position. And so, and this year's been no different. I mean, we've been limited in a few ways as it's gone on, and you just adjust. But I would say our time on the field, amount of reps we've gotten, probably very comparable to what we've done in the past, other than the COVID year.
John Hoover and then James Hale.
Hey, Lincoln. A little more on Caleb Williams. Spencer's relationship with him. I'm wondering about that. You look back now, Spencer all of a sudden is the older guy. He'll be going into his 3rd year of college football. I'm wondering from his perspective what you've seen from that dynamic. And then if you could, can you expound a little bit on Caleb's classroom load that you mentioned?
Their relationship, I think, is very positive. I think they have mutual respect for each other. Both similar situations, coming out of high school and having to come in and learning this thing really quick. And I think they're both competitive guys, and I think they've been good for each other. It's always great to have, other good players in the room. It pushes you no matter how long you've been at a place. And then, certainly from Caleb's perspective, having a guy in there that's been through the fire, that knows the system at a higher level than Caleb does right now, and a guy that he can watch, the way he prepares and watch the way, the things he does on the field, way he communicates, all of that, I think is good. So no, it's they seem to get along very well. And I would say, very similar to some of the other really good relationships that we've had in that room over the years. Yeah, Caleb's class load. He's one of two players right now that we have with this, I guess, this rule exception this year. But both he and Billy Bowman are still taking some of their high school classes online as well as their spring semester load. So give both guys credit. It's their first year of college, and spring football and all that combined is a lot on its own. And when you add in the fact that you're having to take high school classes on top of that, it's been a challenge for both Billy and Caleb. But I give both those kids a lot of credit. They've handled it well, and both their high schools, Gonzaga and Denton Ryan, have been extremely helpful as well.
Thanks, Lincoln.
James Hale and then Dean Blevins.
Lincoln, it looks like they are going to pass the one-time transfer rule. And I just want to let you know that I wanted your comments on that because it looks like it's going to come to fruition. And I had Patty Gasso on my show, and I asked her about inter-conference transfers, what she thought about it. And she said she absolutely agreed with you, and she doesn't like that idea. So I've asked 3 or 4 coaches at OU, and they've all agreed with you. So you got your coaches behind you in this deal, and I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I think it's like anything. There's going to be rules you agree with, rules you don't. People are going to have different positions, and you understand that. If somebody doesn't agree with me, I'm not mad at them. I that's fine. I see it from my perspective, and my perspective, again, has zero to do with any of the individuals. My perspective is, I don't know, maybe as you get a little bit older in this thing, you start thinking about kind of long-term, of what the game and what does that look like, and take your individual needs or wants out of it. And, this game's been very, very, good to me. It's been a huge part of my life and my family's life. And as my career goes on, and certainly even when I'm done, I want this game to still be the best sport in the world, which it is. And so that's where, I land on that, and even some of the other decisions through the years, some of the other things that we've talked about that have become controversial, or one of those things where everybody has an opinion on it. So there's a lot of people that have that same opinion, a lot. Most aren't willing to speak out publicly. And so that's where it's at. But again, that's, there's rules. Rules are going to change. There's rules on the field, rules off the field all the time we don't like. I still, even though I coach offense or have in my career, I still never agreed that a lineman should be able to be 3 yards down the field and you'd be able to make a forward pass. But I think that's insane. But it's the rule, and you gotta live with it, play within the rules, whether it's on the field or off the field, and go on.
Thanks, Lincoln. Have a great day.
You too.
Dean Blevins and then Mason Young.
Yeah, Lincoln, I'm wondering about Spencer Rattler. It seems like you possibly could have upgrades at a number of positions throughout the team, including offense. And even in the quarterback room, it would be, it's the same quarterback, but more reps, et cetera. Where is he, or where will he be by game 1 in terms of being better? It sounds like physically he's a little bit better. How would you evaluate that, his improvement from the end of the bowl game to where you're going to see him start the season?
Yeah, I can speak to where I hope he gets to. And where he's at right now. He's, we've really pushed him hard physically. Like we've said here, we think there's another level that he can go to with his movements, his body composition, kind of all parts of it. Just becoming more physically developed and having more capabilities physically. And so, that started with kind of the first phase of our off season before spring, and certainly will be, continued to be addressed, here in late spring and throughout the summer. Then I think, you see an understanding, more of an understanding, and more, being a little more comfortable with the things that we're doing, and that's just the reps over time, and that's all the meetings over time and all the walkthroughs. You see that starting to take hold. The thing he's got to continue to challenge himself to do mentally is you can't, or you got to be careful, and because if you do this, you'll stop progressing. Is you can't say, well, okay, I've been a starting quarterback for the year. I know this system. Like my work ethic, my study habits, my focus in meetings, all that, my attention to detail, like I'm good. Like I got it. And no, you don't got it. You don't, in football, you never get it. It's a constant battle to get better. And so the starting point's way better. But if he'll continue to work, I would expect that he'll improve in a lot of areas. But and he has so far. But he's going to have to continue to really work.
Thanks, Lincoln.
You're welcome.
Go to Mason Young and then Garen Emig.
Yeah, Lincoln, I wanted to ask you about Jalen Redmon. I know you guys got him back practice-wise before the bowl game, and was just curious if you felt like, if at all, like how much that benefited him jumping back in then versus kind of coming back in the spring like everybody else.
I do think it benefited him. I really do. And it was not like it was a big number of days, and it's not like we threw him in there and gave him 1 million reps when he hadn't been practicing before, but just to get back out there and kind of get the feel of it again, to take some reps, to get some of the cobwebs, probably some of the nervousness out of it. I mean, I think it made a difference because he's done a good job this spring. He really has. He's been disruptive as he's always been. He's always been a pain in the butt to block, and that certainly hasn't changed. And I think he's just really in a good place. I mean, just all parts of it, and physically, mentally, just everything. He's just in a really, really good place, and I know he's enjoying being out there and playing with our defensive line, but I do think him coming back was big. I not just for Jalen, but I think also team saw that. I mean it said a lot to teammates, for him to come back and do that, to practice, to want to help us, be ready to go play Florida and beat Florida, and so that was. I think it was a really positive thing for him and for, just the team and the team chemistry.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Garen Emig and then Joey Helmer.
Yeah, Lincoln, every few years, the topic of spring scrimmages bubbles up as in relation to teams playing other teams as opposed to doing an intra-squad. It never seems to gain any traction, though. It's just, this is an interesting idea and then nothing ever happens. Do you see the day that becomes a viable option? I'm not even sure you could have it per the NCAA, even if you wanted to right now, but would you be at all interested in having that as an alternative to intra-squads at some point?
It'd be worth the conversation. I don't know that I could sit here today and say I would definitely be in favor of it. There's teams are at different points, in spring, and you certainly get into deals where maybe you have this many players available at the beginning of spring, and then all of a sudden, whether a guy's injured or transfer or whatever happens, you don't. And then how the nice thing about the spring game format is we can totally control it, and if you've got somebody else on the other line of that has their priorities in mind, I could see that becoming difficult. So like I said, I'm not saying it's not worth the conversation, but I see that being maybe a little far-fetched, honestly.
Well, quick follow-up. Do you see it as a more viable alternative for bringing fans in who, the product is a little more in terms of just a typical game? I mean, you guys are more careful, it seems, every year, and right, with the thud instead of the tackle and keeping guys out. Would that give fans a more viable excuse to come watch, you think?
It might, depending on the opponent.
Right.
It might. I think at some places, I think it could make a big difference. We're lucky that our fans here, support us the way we do. I mean, I still will forever have burned in my mind. We changed the spring gate, but less than 48 hours. We changed the date, time, everything, and have 50,000 people out there at night. So that's, I'm always thankful of that, and hopefully we can have another good product out there for them this year.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, two more, Joey Helmer and then Josh Calloway.
Yeah, I have a broad question. In fact, it's not even really a football question, but you guys are the bell cow on campus, but obviously I saw you meeting Porter and Jenny the other day, and there seems to be a connectedness with this athletic department that might be a little bit unusual. In your perspective, what does it say about the athletic department as a football coach, how you guys are so intertwined?
Yeah, I would say two things on that. One, Joe and his staff have done a great job from day one here of bringing the sports together. We have monthly just head coaches meetings they're not like your typical meetings where you're just going through kind of a list of priorities or just kind of busy work. I mean, it's interactive. It's more kind of working together, which has been great. We do a lot of events that bring all the teams together, where it's not like one sport's here, one sport's there. And so the athletic department here does as good a job of anywhere I've ever been of bringing everybody together. And then I think the other thing that brings the people together here too is the level of competitiveness, and the level of success that so many of our programs have had and currently are having. And I think it's in a great way. It's in a productive way that, every sport wants to do well on their own, of course, but they also want the other sports to do very well too, and they want the OU brand from an athletics standpoint to be about success and to be about championships and to be about, playing and competing at the highest level and being in those biggest and best games, matches, whatever it is. So I do think there's a competitiveness within the department too, a healthy competitiveness that pushes the other teams as well. It's been fun to be a part of that, and certainly great to meet Porter and Jenny. Those guys are, they're tremendous. I mean, that's obviously basketball is a big deal anywhere, and replacing the two great coaches and two coaches I really enjoyed my time with, and certainly it looks like it's going to be a great relationship with our two new basketball coaches.
Okay, Josh Calloway.
Yeah, Lincoln, I'm just curious, with spring practices obviously winding down here, just what are some of the guys that have been the biggest surprises, I guess, of the last month or so, the biggest breakout players that have just had, guys that you wouldn't maybe expect as much, not star guys, but guys that have just really, risen up over the last month?
Well, there's your expectations and ours. We pretty much expect everybody to break out. So I wouldn't say unexpected by any stretch for us, at least, but I think a few of the guys have really done a good job this spring. Jordan Kelly is one of the first names that comes to mind. Both he and I would also say in that interior D-line, Josh Ellison, both those guys have really taken some nice steps this spring, and they've both had really good spring practices. Been proud of the way those guys perform. Justin Broyles has had a really good spring in our secondary. I think the best that he's consistently performed since he's been here, and he's been here a while. And but I think he's in a great spot and doing some really nice things. I think a couple of our offensive linemen have really improved. Tyrese Robinson, I think has had a really, really good spring. Eric Swenson's had a really good spring. So been proud of those guys' progress. Jeremiah Hall has had a really strong spring. He's really performed at a high level, has taken a lot of the reps, and has certainly made a difference. I think. I mean, like I said, some of the newcomers are having their moments. We'll wait to put them in the Hall of Fame a little bit later. But we got some guys that are of the young group they're certainly doing a nice job as well. So no, it's been a good spring. It has. It's guys they've been into it, and I think I felt like this group has appreciated the fact that we even have it right now. I mean, after most of them went through, it being taken away.